I feel like the word stir fry for beginners or even experienced home cooks can be intimidating, especially if you've been to like an hibachi where you see that amazing flick of the wrist and fire going everywhere. Seeing that as how you stir fry something, your chances of trying it at home have significantly reduced. Or you're really excited to go home and catch something on fire. The good news, a lot of this you can replicate in your kitchen with similar results. So you don't need to purchase a giant wok, use like incredible high heat, or even learn to toss something in the air as high as you can. While these tools and skills are extremely helpful, you can build the foundational principles under less stressful circumstances. Today's cashew meal is a model of the classic takeout dish and how you can make it easy and healthy with more protein right at home. Starting with tofu, which is our main source of protein. I use super firm, which has the most resistance out of the tofu firmness family. In this recipe, we play with tofu quite a few times. Therefore, if your tofu is too soft, maybe like medium firm tofu, you may want to be very careful as you risk crumbling it. If you didn't want to use tofu, you have two main options. One is to swap the tofu with something else, like store-bought plant chicken or seitan, or tofu made with something else like pepitas. Option two would be to leave it out. While this would lower the protein value of the dish, it is still packed with a bunch of nutrition that's gonna help you feel satiated. The cornstarch we use to give the tofu that crisp could be swapped with most flours, all-purpose, rice flour, potato starch, just to name a few. Within the recipe, we're gonna shallow fry, which is part of the method used in stir frying, where you use the small amount of oil while you stir the ingredients. So, using a large skillet, preferably with high walls, is great at aiding the containment of everything you're gonna be putting in. If I had to eat one green for the rest of my life, I'm pretty sure it would be broccoli, I think. I really hope I never have to eat one green for the rest of my life. So I use it often in my meals, but feel free to use cauliflower, asparagus, Brussels, whatever floats your fancy. I also added sugar snap peas to help the meal go a bit further as far as serving goes, and protein. Similar to the cooking method we did in our last video, we're gonna slightly start off with a little bit of stir fry, then switch to adding a little bit of steam for our greens. This is gonna help get us that charring on the vegetables from the initial cooking process, then steaming to get that perfect texture and retain that bright green color. If you only have raw cashews, I would consider roasting them in the oven prior to getting them going in the dish. The roasted cashews add texture, but more importantly, in my opinion, a separate door to open up the flavors. If you're allergic to cashews, try using another nut you enjoy the flavor of. I could see pine nuts or even macadamias as an optimal choice. Once you add the sauce into the recipe, you may not have enough food to share, as the entire household is going to flock to the kitchen. If you're soy-free, outside of making adjustments for the tofu, you could also use coconut aminos to swap out the soy sauce. But the hoisin sauce also contains soy. Therefore, I would recommend replacing that with a teaspoon of tomato paste in combination with an additional tablespoon of coconut aminos for this recipe. The rice vinegar isn't so distinct that you couldn't swap it for like apple cider vinegar. And I personally love the taste of maple syrup, but agave could also work in a pinch. This full recipe is linked in the description, or you could head over to my website, makeitdairyfree.com. Two of my favorite words to say are goulash and paprikash. I just really think they're like extra fun to say. Both words are Hungarian foods, and today's meal is the second one. Tofu, paprikash. By the way, I have a lot more favorite words. These two just happen to be a part of today's conversation. This meal is such an advanced, underestimated restaurant quality meal that is remarkably simple to make. First of all, if you are a sauce savant, you're gonna wanna leave the nice clothes on the hanger in the closet and pull out the holy t-shirts. And I'm not talking about spiritually. In this meal, there is literally sauce for everyone involved in the eating collaboration and not involved. Yeah, let's talk about how we bring this together. Actually, before that, you wanna start your side. You could do some brown rice, whole wheat pasta, or just a bed of broccoli. Once you have that together, off on some other part of the stove doing its thing, let's move to the main event. Today we're starting out with a soy tofu. That kinda sounds weird. If you are unaware, there is all types of tofu out there now. Chickpeas, pumpkin seeds, cashews, I think. All that really matters is as long as they're firm to super firm, you can use them in this recipe. Softer tofus would break apart or crumble. Lastly, you could also use soy curls or a store-bought plant chicken sub. Oh, and I can share with you how to use chickpeas in there. So we start off seasoning and searing the tofu. If you're using a large enough nonstick skillet, you could make this recipe oil-free. And this might sound sarcastic, but I swear it's not. Just don't put any oil in it, okay? Maybe a little sarcasm. You could also use a little broth in place of the oil to help you along the way. As you saw, the tofu jumps in and out of the pan a few times during the cooking process. After searing, we do this to give room for the fragrances and the tomato roux. Cooking the fragrances can be pretty straightforward. You may have some residual spices hanging out in there holding on to the pan, and that's okay. Once you get the tomato paste and the gluten-free flour in there, you could also use all-purpose flour. You're mixing to combine and cook the flour before you get your spices in there for a light toast. I want to put emphasis on the word light because burnt paprika is bitter and there's no coming back from it. I've been there. We already used 2 different paprikas. Therefore, we already kind of got a little bit of that flavor covered. From here, the hard part is over and it's all downhill. I don't know if I should say downhill. Kind of sounds a little negative. Uphill also sounds like a little bit of a battle. It's all no hill, just flat ground the whole time after. Once you get to this part. As you get your broth in and your tofu shortly after, you're braising the tofu for as long as your heart desires. Keep it between 30 minutes to an hour. The braising process is going to help thicken the sauce, develop flavors, and penetrate the protein. If you're using the firmest tofu, it won't penetrate as much, but you will get really good coverage. Once it's time to get the coconut milk in, you're pretty much done. Any thick milk can be used here, like oat milk or soy milk also. Only change here would be you may need to simmer a tad bit longer until your desired thickness has reached. Oh, about the chickpeas I talked about adding in before, you could toss them in right here at the end. And since the sauce is nice and thick, you get some really good coverage on there. This tofu paprikash can be found linked in the description or at my website, makeitdairyfree.com. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, believe in good. Peace.